Today I want to talk about how to choose your BPM. It's a decision that you might not think about much, but it can be very important to get your beat to sound right. So if you're struggling to understand BPMs and what you should choose for your beats, I would say that before choosing your BPM, there are actually two decisions that you need to make before this. And they are as follows. Number one, what genre is it that you're trying to make? This is going to be a very big determining factor in what BPM you should choose. Genres sort of lend themselves better to very specific BPM ranges, and once you fall outside of that range, structurally speaking, it can start to sound and feel like an entirely different genre. I will show you an example of this later on in this video. But after deciding what genre you're trying to make, the next idea that you'll want to consider is the overall energy level of the beat. Within those BPM ranges, if you choose a BPM that's on the lower end, many times you'll start to have a lower, more relaxed energy, whereas increasing the BPM will give you a higher energy track. And I want to say choosing a higher BPM range doesn't instantly make your beat feel high energy. How you construct the beat definitely has a large impact on how energetic your beat feels, but BPM is definitely a contributing factor to this. Now I'm going to put up a rough guide of BPMs on the screen, but it's important to understand that this is by no means a strict guide. Everything that I talk about in this video shouldn't be taken as rules that you absolutely have to follow. For example, you can find many boom bap beats that are lower than 80 BPM or trap beats that are higher than 75. I just want to give you a rough guide on where to start. And if you do something different, by all means, I encourage it. Now you'll also notice that there is an additional column for double time. This is something that you might be wondering. Should I be producing in single time or double time? Which is best? This is something that I will also cover in this video as well. So let's start with the first idea, what genre you're trying to make. This is pretty self-explanatory. Just pick a genre that you feel like making and then move on to the next column. After this, we need to think about where along this range you should pick and just how high or low energy you want your beat to sound. The exact BPM that you choose can affect your production decisions and how you should construct your beat. To show this, let's choose the moody ethereal genre. Here I have this beat that's at 57 BPM, so it's on the lower end of this range. Let's take a listen. So this is a spacey lower energy beat. Now if we start going higher and higher in BPM, let's take a listen to what happens. I'm going to go ahead and bump this up to 70 BPM. The energy level picks up quite a bit, and I would start to say that this is not sounding as ethereal or spacey. We're beginning to lose some of what makes this beat fit into this very specific genre, and it's sounding less like the genre that I originally wanted to make here. Which makes sense, it's starting to feel more like a trap beat since we are edging into trap BPM territory. So if I want to try to get this to feel like a spacier beat once again, but at this higher BPM, I'm going to have to make some changes to this beat at a production level. With this genre specifically, a big reason why ethereal, spacey beats feel so spacey is because obviously there's just a lot of open space in them. So to get this to sound more spacey, I'm going to have to reduce how much is happening in this beat and try to introduce more open space. So let's go ahead and lose some of these hi-hats here. I'm also going to go ahead and change this kick pattern. So I changed a bunch of these patterns to create more open space. Let's take a listen to how it sounds now. It's starting to feel a bit more spacey now compared to when we just turned up the BPM and left everything as it was. And so this is why you'll need to be specific with your BPM that you choose for your beats, instead of just choosing the same number every single time you make a very specific genre. Based on what you decide on, it will have an impact on how you produce in terms of how you structure your beats, how many sounds you decide to use in order to get it to fit the genre that you're trying to make. So you'll want to make sure to be deliberate. Next up, let's take a look at this trap beat that I have here. Now let's talk about single versus double time. As you can see, I am within the single time range for this trap beat. But if I were to take this beat's BPM and double it, you'll notice a very big difference. If I were to just isolate these drums here for an example and play it in single time, This sounds like a typical trap drum pattern, but if I were to double the BPM, now that our beat is twice as fast, everything that I produce in this beat will sound twice as fast as well. So let's bring this up to 146. And obviously this doesn't sound like a trap drum pattern anymore. So if you plan on producing in double time, you're essentially going to be taking everything that you would produce and have it play over twice the length. So for example, with this drum pattern, if I take all of what I've built here and I stretch it out over twice the amount of space, now it's starting to sound like it's at the correct pace for a trap beat. And this is essentially the difference between single time and double time. To produce in double time is to basically have the exact same amount of music occurring, but it just occurs over twice the amount of space. And by the way, if you're getting value out of this video, hit the like button. It's really easy to do and it really helps me out. Now you might be wondering, what is the point of producing in double time? Does it have an effect on how my beat will turn out? I'm gonna go ahead and take the stance of saying no. Obviously, the placement of your instrumentation is going to change, just as you saw in the example that I showed. That's one very big difference between single and double time. But oftentimes people ask this question thinking that somehow their beat is going to end up turning out differently or better if they produce in one time or another. And for the people that say that this is true, when asked what the actual technical difference is, most of the time they say things that are vague, like you can just feel the difference, or it just has a different bounce to it. To me, this is just all nonsense. To look at this from an actual technical perspective, there are definitely differences that can occur, but they're pretty small. For instance, if you're playing around with the timing of your notes and you don't want them to be completely quantized, producing in double time now offers you twice the amount of space to get more specific with note placement. So here in single time, if I were to play with my drum pattern and I wanted to create a kick right before the snare, but I didn't want it to be completely quantized, I have just this one block of space right here to play within, whereas if I was in double time, this one block now doubles, giving me more space to get more detailed with when I want this note to play. So that's one difference. Another difference is related to BPM dependent functions. For example, if a plugin that you're using changes depending on the BPM that you choose, then there will be a difference between single and double time. But most plugins give you the option to change how often those effects will occur. So that's not going to be the biggest deal by any means. Something like swing will also be different as well, in that the values will change since you're playing around with the overall space once again. But are these things that are gonna make or break your beat? Is the reason why your beats don't sound good because they're in single time and producing in double time will finally make your beats sound good? I say no, this is just nonsense. My advice is just to do whatever you're comfortable with and let others do what they're comfortable doing as well. Producing in single or double time doesn't change the quality of your music. But if I'm wrong, if I'm overlooking some huge important technical concept that I didn't cover and you can explain it to me, feel free to comment down below and correct me. But if all you're gonna say is something like it just feels different or everyone makes this type of beat at double time, therefore that's what you have to do, then I would say this is not a good enough reason. So that's what you want to consider when you're choosing your BPM. Step 1 is to pick a genre, and step 2 is to think about the general energy level and pick somewhere along these ranges as a starting point. And once you do so, if you plan on changing the BPM afterwards, understand that some production changes may need to occur to capture the original intent of what you're trying to make. So hopefully this video helped you out. If so, please like and subscribe. Head over to betterbeatmaker.com. If you want some more production tutorials, my free drum kit's available in the description box below, as well as links to the Discord if you want to join my producer community, and I'll see you next time.